Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the Habibis podcast. Three game developers drinking good Arab tea. I'm your host for this week, Osama Dorius.
وأنا فوزي مسمار.
And I'm Rami Ismail.
So, for this week, we thought of starting it a little bit differently. We've been receiving a lot of really interesting emails and messages on Twitter, lots of questions on our Discord. We read them, we always respond, and we love getting those. So, we thought maybe we were going to start by reading out a few of them, a few of our favorites.
Let's do it.
All right, I'm going to start us off with an email from Tanvir Mia. Just off the back of the episode about driving in Egypt, I have a funny anecdote about learning to drive a motorbike in Bangladesh. When I went to Bangladesh, my dad was aggressively against me learning to drive a motorbike and wouldn't let me go out with my uncle who had a Yamaha unless he promised he wouldn't let me drive it. I was 16 in Bangladesh when I wanted to learn. Once my dad let his guard down and didn't make my uncle promise, so he snuck out to an abandoned factory site. I know it's probably the unsafest place to learn. And he taught me to drive the motorbike, which I picked up very quickly. I asked about helmets, and he laughed. He didn't even know where you could buy one locally.
Oh my God.
Yeah. My uncle suggested I drive back home to prove to my dad I can drive, which was a wild experience due to the lack of rules similar to Arab countries. We spoke about that at length.
Right.
But while I was driving, I asked how to indicate, as in like signal. He didn't understand what I meant. While driving, I explained the lights on the side of the bike are indicators and indicate if you're going to turn. And his mind was blown. He had no idea the lights had a purpose or if they even lit up.
Oh my God.
He thought the idea of indicating was hilarious and had never heard of the concept. He just turned when he wanted to.
Right. That's fair. Fair.
He later took me to his friend's shop and asked me to narrate what I told him about indicators. They were all cracking up and couldn't believe indicators were a thing. The concept was so novel to them and genuinely thought the lights were just part of the aesthetic.
I mean, I can imagine, like, it's the same thing with mirrors, like people are like, yeah, well, they're there.
Yeah.
What are they for? Like, I mean, you can see behind you, but what are you going to look behind you? There's people trying to force stop your car in front of you. So
you worry about what's in front of you. Let them worry about
exactly.
I do almost want to look up the number of accidents or like the statistics on accidents in Bangladesh. I mean, they probably will match what we have in Arab
the
world.
Middle East.
Probably very similar.
Probably very similar. I could jump in and read a tweet. There's a tweet coming in from Mo. He says, "Loving the Habibis podcast, and I'm dying to know what good Arab tea you guys are drinking. Be as specific as you can." So I'm drinking jasmine tea today, actually, which is what I usually drink. I'm not sure if it's Arab tea per se.
I mean,
that's kind of an Arab name.
Jasmine. Like it's commonly drunk, right?
Yeah. I had a lot of jasmine tea in Japan as well. So
right.
But it tastes different than the jasmine tea I used to have back home. Like we like really dark tea.
Yeah.
It has to look like Coke almost. It has to be super dark with like as many spoons of sugar as humanly possible.
Right.
I don't like like when you get like the tea, there'll be like the little like shot glass, and there'll be like maybe the quarter of it is sugar. When it's served to me.
2 giant cubes. That's the standard.
2 giant cubes, yeah.
If you don't ask for sugar, that's what you get.
I mean, minty is one of my favorite, like nana.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's but like it was my grandmother used to drink that all the time, and it wasn't tea unless there were some leaves of nana in it. So I don't have the leaves, but I do have a mint tea laying around, and otherwise like usually just straight up black tea.
Yeah.
Classic.
I used to actually grow up a lot of shai b'leban, right? Tea with milk.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
That was like a very common. When we would go to bed, we kind of mixed our Dutch and Egyptian influences. So we would have tea. We would have shai b'leban, tea with milk, in the evening, half tea, half milk, or a little bit more than half tea, and a little bit less than half milk, and then a stroopwafel, which is a Dutch cookie. On top of it, because if you put the waffle on top of the tea, it melts a little, and the syrup inside gets a little gooey. So
That sounds
we would have
great.
like the most Dutch Egyptian possible end of our day every day. Shebe Lemon with a stroopwafel.
That sounds great.
But yeah, those are kind of my go-tos.
I have an assortment of teas at home. None of them I would necessarily consider Arab tea. I actually ran out of my stores of the Arab tea, but what I generally drink, it's either Assam black tea or Earl Grey or orange pekoe. I also have some rooibos, but that's not really tea. Those are like, practically flower petals. But all of those are good. I love tea, I used to have teas from all over the world. My stores are a little bit depleted. The one thing that I want to mention is my favorite Iraqi tea, which I don't have anymore, is Numi Basra, which is a tea made from dried lime, and it actually has a very it's a little bit of a sour tea, so you have to have it with a lot of sugar or honey, but it tastes delicious. And if you don't, then it kind of tastes like neocitrin, like a medicine, because of how sour it is. I'm looking forward to restocking after the pandemic.
Yeah. Wow. That last tea sounds great. I've never had.
Yeah, that sounds cool.
Yeah,
So
I never.
good.
I want to get that. What was it called again?
Numi Basra.
Numi Basra. Okay. Good. I'll look it up. Yeah,
Yeah.
we have another email from Madi Bahrami, who writes in the last episode, Rami talks briefly about scissor superstition in Egypt. In Iran, we have the same superstition. We should not leave a scissor open because that's a sign for a conflict or fight between people. If my grandma sees scissors left open somewhere, she would ask us to close it. They believe if you don't cut stuff with the scissors and leave it open, it will cut our relationships instead.
Wow.
It's kind of fascinating because from what I remember, Osama Fauzi, you two didn't have that superstition.
No. I've
So
never,
this is
never
really-
heard of it before. It's interesting
Yeah.
that
This-
it's also in Iran.
Right. It traveled across. I mean, Iran and Egypt have, old ties.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing that scissors are a pretty old thing. I'm guessing it must have come from that time, the old ties between. But it's funny that it didn't stop in any of your countries because you're both in the middle between
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
So,
It's
wonder
very
if-
possible that is just something that my family didn't pick up. I'm gonna actually ask my parents to know if
I wonder
they've
if there's
heard of it.
something in the like maybe something in the Arab Peninsula more.
Yeah.
or that it didn't take hold there,
Yeah.
but it did take in North Africa and in the Middle East. Interesting. Yeah. I don't know if you recognize the name, but he is actually one of my favorite independent developers. He worked on a game called Farsh, which I use frequently to talk about how many unexplored game ideas there still are, which is an incredible game about rolling up carpets.
Yep.
And he did Engare
I
recently,
love that game. I love
Right.
that game.
which is a game about mathematical drawings. And it's really hard to explain, but it's very good.
It's like those mathematical drawings that end up like creating a lot of like the Islamic ornaments and like classic architecture of the region.
Absolutely.
Because there was sort of like a religious precedent to not portraying creatures. A lot of the art in the region grew to be very beautifully like complex geometric shapes, and Gade really shows beautifully how some of those were done
Great game.
and what their origins are. But yeah, good. How about we transition to some video games? This was fun. We should do
Yeah.
this more often.
Absolutely. What did you do? I mean, what did you play this week, Rami? Or maybe you watched something?
I play. So I actually fun story. I didn't feel like there was much to play this week. Mostly, I just wanted something fun and fast to play, and I have such a love for the sort of action racers, right? And I don't know where it came from because I don't really like racing games all that much. I like games where you travel from A to B. I don't like racing games, and I just wanted like a fun racing game. So I bought Burnout Paradise on the Switch,
Man,
and
that game is incredible.
Yeah, such a good game.
the thing about Burnout, like the weird thing about Burnout is I think I joined Burnout at Burnout Revenge, right? Like a decade and a half ago by now.
Mhm.
And I really liked how fast it was. It was unreasonably fast.
Mhm.
And then you had takedown, and there was all the like super over the top crashes that you could do. I think Paradise it's not necessarily the best Burnout, but it is the most complete Burnout.
It's absolutely
It's-
my favorite.
Oh yeah, mine as well.
The thing that I now that I'm playing it again, right? The thing that I think I love about it most is that it never stops.
Yeah.
Right. This is a game about momentum, and Burnout Paradise just it does not stop. Like you complete a race, you get the end screen is gone, you're driving.
Yeah.
You crash, you're driving.
Yeah.
You stop, classical opera music starts playing. Like it's like the people making this knew what they were doing, and they really distilled everything of Burnout into one game. And I think I like Revenge in some moods a bit better. I like Takedown in some moods a bit better because they're messier. Burnout Paradise it's very smooth, right? It's very clean. And playing it, I'm adoring it, right? Like don't get me wrong, I'm loving this game, but I'm also realizing that I just have such a soft spot for semi-broken games.
Yeah.
I have to believe that this is true for most games, right? Like the first game in a series very frequently kind of like it's an idea, but they run out of time, they run out of money, they have to cut corners, they're iterating so much on the sort of the core of the game that they can't quite get to the finish line. But then the second game, they figure it all out, and somehow I love the first game every time.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm having a lot of fun. Actually, one of my favorite things, my mom, my Dutch mother, she plays video games with me. She's playing Ghost of Tsushima. And yesterday I was visiting, so I brought my Switch to play Burnout Paradise. She has a dock, so I thought I'll play it. And my mom wanted to give it a go. And she had the best time, which I really did not expect. She just started driving in Burnout Paradise, and she had a blast, like crashing into billboards. She thought that was the greatest thing, and she just kept saying like, "The person who made these crashes really loves crashes, don't they? Like, look at that. Every crash is different. Look at the wheel comes up." And she was having such a blast, and it made me realize just how tied around, like Burnout is tied around two ideas, right? It's like going really fast and then the instant stop of the music, the instant slow motion on the crash, the like harmonica of your car falling apart in like spectacle, and then snapping straight back to speed.
It adds
That's
to the
Burnout.
impact. It adds to the impact so much. That feeling of like the slow motion, then snapping back to reality.
Right.
It's very visceral as a feeling.
And the other thing is, it's like it's so fast that you only realize you're in trouble about a half a second in front of it, right? Like half a second before you hit the wall, you go like, and then it's just like as the sound leaves your mouth, you're already in the slow motion crash. So my mom was driving her first bit, and then she was doing pretty well, which really honestly is quite impressive for somebody who hasn't been playing games that long. And suddenly there was a wall, and she just went, "Oh." It's like a slow motion crash, and we just started laughing. So she played Burnout. It's such a good game.
It is. And fun fact, it's actually my most played game on Steam. I have 662 hours on Burnout Paradise. Well, to be fair, probably 60 of them are me and 600 are my son. Yeah. I mean, I love the game. 60 is still a considerable amount of time to put in a racing game. But my son, when he was 3 years old, he saw me playing, he took the controller. I have video of him playing. This is before he could even speak properly. And he was good. I'm watching him play, and he was like taking down cars and doing like it's shocking. He fell in love with that game. So it's one of those games that like you could it's almost universal. Like I don't think I've ever met someone who tried. Like I met people who haven't tried it because they're like, I don't play racing games. But I don't think I've ever met a person who's tried Burnout Paradise and didn't love it.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if you're like racing game fan or not. Like this is a gamer's game. You just grab it and you're immediately having fun with it.
It's a joy game. It's a fun game, right? Yes, and I think I miss that. I definitely miss that in games right now. Like, but racing games try to be racing games, and I don't. I want to have fun. Yep. Like, just let me have fun.
Yep. Yeah, agreed. Okay, so I'll jump in. I played a game called Haven. Mm-hmm. I enjoyed it. So basically, it's an action adventure game with a narrative focus. I didn't finish it yet, so but either way, I'm not going to spoil it. But so I don't know how it concludes. But narratively, I'm really liking it. The conversations between the two characters, because you play and you could swap between two characters. Without giving too much away, they're kind of isolated from. They're the only people in this place. They only have each other. The conversations felt real and heartfelt. It was well written, and the voice acting was really good as well. And you go back and forth between two modes: one where it's like third person action adventure, and the other space is when you're inside their living quarters, where you're like a disembodied camera floating around, and you could interact with things. And I thought it was interesting that they went back and forth between these two modes. And then I noticed something interesting mechanically. When you're in their living space and you interact, for example, with the kitchen, they start talking. Like, so I'm like, okay, so I guess they're not around. Like, this is just a representation of the space, but you hear their voices. And then I found them. They're there. They were like lounging around in their bed, and that's how you continue to the next scene, is by interacting with them where they are physically. And the next, like when we came back to their living space, they were set up in the kitchen, and I realized that this is a very subtle and clever way to tell you, if you want to move to the next scene, just look for them, interact with them, they'll play out the obligatory dialogue, and you'll move on. But if you want to explore, then you could get more exposition. And it was done like so naturally. Like before even stopping to think about it, like, it was intuitive. I'm like, okay. Like, as soon as I played through that sequence once and discovered them, I instinctively knew that if I want to move on to the next scene, I just have to find where they are sitting.
Yeah.
And that's clever. I've never seen something like, I'm always on the lookout for these how did they solve this problem type.
Right.
Yeah. So for indie devs, you always have to find shortcuts. Navigating a tight space brings so many problems that people don't think about.
That's
But they
why a lot
would
of
have
games like disable running in spaces. Some
Exactly.
games that like interact with the world in the same way.
Also, please stop shooting the NPC after talking. Please.
Exactly.
I mean, I guess for me, like Haven, when I played it, the sort of like highlight was UNK, right? Like the two characters.
Yes.
It's so well done.
Gliding on the grass and that kind of stuff. No, that's kind of fun. Like a like human wipeout kind of motion, hovering over grass.
Yeah, I agree. I didn't dislike the navigation, but it wasn't what I was playing for. If the entire game was that, I would have probably stopped.
Yeah, I agree.
After in short order.
Yeah.
What I really liked was the characters and the back and forth.
The relationship is so good. Like, it feels so genuine.
I would describe everything other than the narrative parts as being enough. Like the combat was enough. It wasn't anything that you had to break your head to try to figure out. It was never difficult, at least for me. I never came at risk of failing. It was just enough to not completely lose interest into it. The navigation parts were short enough that I didn't lose interest, but and there wasn't anything that stood out that was too bad about it.
It's a fun game. I enjoyed it when I played it.
What about you, Fauzi?
So I've been playing a bit of Persona 5 Strikers, but I think we spoke about it quite a bit on this podcast now.
That's right. The last episode, the episode before that, the episode before that.
So let me summarize. Persona 5 Strikers is great.
It's so good.
So good. I love it. So yeah, we can leave it at that. But I've also haven't played as much of it as I would want to, because I've been busy with something. I thought it would be interesting maybe to talk on the show about. So I don't know if you guys know, but for the past 2 years I've been doing an MBA degree.
Mm-hmm.
My background, I'm a computer science background. So I studied in university back in the day was computer science, but I wanted to study to solidify my knowledge of business and stuff. So I've been studying MBA for a while, and I graduate next month. So I'm in my first one. Thank you. Like wait the mabruk until it happens.
Yeah.
Mabruk, inshallah.
Inshallah. Yeah, there you go. Much better. Much better.
Hold on, the mabruk is just weird to my ears, because in Dutch, broek is pants.
Don't drop the brooks.
Don't drop the pants just yet.
Yeah.
So I'm writing the what they call, it's like similar to the thesis. It's the strategic case analysis, and I wanted to write something about video games. So there was this book called there's a book that inspired me. It's called Console Wars by Blake Harris.
I've read it.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic book. I really enjoy it. It details like the rivalry between Sega and Nintendo in the early 90s, from 1990 to 1995 exactly. And
Right.
the most fascinating part about this, I think, from a business point of view, is that Sega went into the market that Nintendo dominated. By dominated, I mean like Nintendo had 95% market share.
Right.
It's like it's almost monopoly at that point. And then like Sega went in with the Mega Drive or the Genesis, and then by 1995, the Mega Drive had 50% market share,
Right.
which is wild. So like I thought it would be really interesting to build a thesis around the business analysis of how they did that.
Right.
And a big part of what I'm writing about is like their marketing campaign, which was like they went all out with the aggressive marketing. Like they invented terms such as blast processing.
Yeah, I remember.
And up until like the design of Sonic being like so edgy and cool, and whereas the Mario was for kids. And Sonic was like for the grown-ups, which is really like 13 to 15-year-olds.
Right.
And
they're grown-ups now.
Exactly. A lot of the marketing was kind of like completely bashing on Nintendo. To position Sega to be like the edgier, grittier, more cool kind of like brand. Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Sega does what Nintendo don't, right?
What Nintendo don't, exactly. They got the sports games. They made sure that their Mortal Kombat had blood in it.
Blood, yes.
Right.
It was the best version, quote unquote.
The best version of the game, exactly. The thing is, like, I think back in the day, like, it worked, obviously, because like they ended up getting like 50% market share. It definitely worked on me because like I had an NES. It wasn't my first console. I had like two. I had an MSX and an Atari before that, but an NES was like the console. It was like a magnificent thing that had so many games on it, and then Sonic and the marketing campaign and whatnot. I was like, yeah, I'm an adult now. I don't want to play kids games. And
were you, 9?
Totally, like I was totally like a Sega kid. During the Mega Drive era, which is now like in hindsight, like I after the Mega Drive, I went back and like replayed a bunch of the Super Nintendo stuff.
Yeah.
And Link to the Past is one of my all-time favorite video games. And like Chrono Trigger. So like I completely disagree with my old self. Like the Super Nintendo is like a much better console in my eyes. But that's like how effective their marketing campaign is.
I mean, it's wild that so much of that marketing survives to that day, right? Like you look at the PS5 marketing, you look at the Xbox, the Xbox X, S, whatever. Oh my god, that name! The new Xbox.
Yeah,
you look at the new Xbox's marketing, and
imagine working at Microsoft. I bet the people there are still confused.
Yeah, for the longest time before the Xbox One was announced, I used to call the original Xbox the Xbox One. I mean, that's right. It adds even more confusion.
The thing is, a lot of the marketing now is still that. They're still making up these big words to sound more like, advanced than their competitors. Yep. They're still mostly playing towards the slightly like we're for kids, but we're also for adults. We're for everybody, right? That's sort of the new spiel. But it all for like the past, 20 years? Mm-hmm. That marketing playbook has been used over and over and over again by, I think, everybody besides Nintendo.
Because that's the market they want to own.
Yeah.
Right.
And they absolutely own it at this stage. And any new parent would be like, I should buy games for the kids. I should probably get a Nintendo. It's associated. It's like if I'm going to buy it for the kids or for the family consumption, Mario and Zelda, they're safe bets.
Exactly.
All consoles are Nintendo. What are you talking about?
also.
This wasn't exactly my first console, but I really wanted an NES when I was really young because I had missed out on the Atari. I used to play Atari at my cousin's house. I didn't own one, and when I asked my parents to give me an Atari, they got me a knockoff Game & Watch. It was like a portal. It wasn't even a real Game & Watch. I really wanted a Nintendo back when the NES was a big deal, and my parents got me a Sega Master System, and like. I know a Sega Master System isn't a knockoff of Nintendo, but when you ask for a Nintendo and you've never heard of a Sega Master System, I felt it was a knockoff. And for the first few months that I had the console, I was disappointed. I'd
Right.
still play the games because the games are still fun, but I couldn't play the games that I saw on the commercials because the Master System. I don't know for you, but the Master System didn't have commercials. We didn't see the games that they had until they did. Like the first commercial I remember seeing was for a helicopter game. I think it was called Thunderstrike or something like that. Thunderblade,
Thunderblade.
and that legitimized the console to me, and it opened up my eyes. I'm like, okay, so this is a good console. It's on TV, and I started. But there was this period where I really lived in this existential, mode. Actually, I had the Sega Master System for so long that my parents only got me an NES at the end of its life cycle, and I became a Sega fanboy because of it. I'm like, this isn't that great. I've been playing these amazing games. I played Phantasy Star and Dragon
That's
Quest.
great games.
Oh,
Right.
I really milked that console, but it was much cheaper than the NES. So I don't fault my parents. And to them, it's a Nintendo. When they came home, they're like, "We bought you your Nintendo." They didn't say we
Right.
bought you something else.
It's funny because in Jordan, we used to call every gaming console an Atari. So
Right.
because Atari was such a big thing. My first console was the Atari 2600, but everything else, like when my dad got me an NES, well, it was or we called it al-aila, computer al-aila in Jordan. He was
Famicom,
like, the Famicom. He's like, I bought you an Atari, which was in fact a Nintendo. Which wasn't actually a Nintendo because it was this like bootleg thing that had 600 games stored on it.
Right.
But when they say 600 games, they're actually 12 games. And then
repeated.
Repeated. But this time you're starting Super Mario Bros. From level 2 instead of level 1.
It's just weird ROM hacks.
But it had this very interesting thing on it when I had it. It had the Captain Tsubasa 2, but the ROM was modded to be in Arabic.
Oh.
It was Captain Majid Abdullah, actually, named after the Saudi player. So that you could play the entire game with Arabic text. And I ended up playing what was for me the authentic Captain Majid experience because I didn't know his name was Captain Tsubasa at that age. It was Captain Majid to me. And then on the console, I played him as Captain Majid too.
I was so upset when I saw this Japanese anime just straight up stealing Captain Magic from us. I was like, wait a minute. No, I think I can one up both of you.
Oh, of course you can.
I got this. Okay, so I was a kid, right? And I never had a console. We had a PC, but our family didn't have a lot of money, and we were living in the Netherlands, obviously, where things were, more expensive. So we didn't just get stuff. We had a PC that was a hand-me-down from an uncle. So Atari, stuff like that, that was never conversations in our house at all. We had the computer to play games on. And then I think I was turning 6 or 7 or something. No, probably more like 10. And Final Fantasy had come out for the PlayStation. And I wanted it.
Okay.
So I told my dad, I want a PlayStation. My dad had said, I will get you the PlayStation. And it took all the money that I got for my birthday, and I went to the store and I bought Final Fantasy. And my dad came home with the PlayStation, and I opened the box and I plugged it in and I opened it to put the disc in, and instead there was a cartridge slot.
Oh no!
Oh no!
And I'm like, wait, what? And I look at it and I closed the lid again, and I look at it and it says Police Station.
Oh no!
Right?
Oh, the
So
disappointment!
And you can't return discs. That's not allowed. If you open the disc, you can't return it anymore. So all of my birthday money that year blown on Final Fantasy VII, which I ultimately never played.
What?
Wow.
You never
On
played
a console, not until much later. But I never played it on PlayStation.
Wow.
Because I never had a PlayStation. I had a Police Station.
Oh no!
And the Police Station was a modded NES with 99 games, including Super Mario, and I think Contra was on there, and a soccer game, Tecmo World Cup Soccer, I think.
Good game.
Yeah, although Argentina was nonsense in that game. They could pass at any angle, while we could only pass at 45-degree angles. I don't know what was up with that. Still angry at that game. Still never beat it. And it was like a weird game with a clown on there, I think. I don't remember most of the games that were on there, but there were 99, and same thing. It was 10 games. They were just looped over and over, and they were just like mods, right? Like ROM hacks.
Yeah.
You now start in level 4. Super Mario Brothers turned into Super Luigi Brothers.
Yeah, there's a one where you could play underwater in the entire Mario world, but the mechanics are when you're underwater.
Rami, the clown game is probably Circus Charlie.
Yeah.
Yes,
I
Yep.
think it's
Yes.
I think it's Circus.
that's the one.
Yeah.
Also, horrifying game, to be honest. That was really hard.
It was very hard.
But yeah, so I had the police station, and I was so disappointed, and I was so heartbroken. I loved the thing until I accidentally blew it up in Egypt by plugging it in. The plug came off, and I thought if you just put the wires in the power plug, it'll work, right?
Oh no.
Oh, no.
And I turned off the light in the entire building.
Oh,
Well,
my
alhamdulillah,
God.
salam, eh? It's a good thing you survived that.
Yeah, right. This is. I also blew up our first computer. To be honest, there was a volt switch on the back, 220 or 110, and I was like, "What is this little weird switch?" And
Oh my God.
I flipped it and blew up the computer. Luckily, there was no damage to anything, including myself. But the computer was dead, and I to this day I pretend I don't know what happened. If Dad's listening to this,
This
I'm
is your
sorry.
confession.
Time to
Right,
come clean.
finally, that was me. But yeah, the computer just stopped working someday. But to be fair, like the honest way I got to play most of the games that helped me like have this background knowledge for a lot of my career in games is just like pirated copies and like fake bootleg consoles that my dad bought from a guy that said, "This is the one. This is it. This is the one."
As a game developer, I actually like. I guess I'm supposed to have mixed feelings about this, but I don't, because I know that the people who can afford the like to buy the consoles and the games, they buy the legit copies.
Yeah.
And the markets that are underserved, I'm happy that they're getting some kind of an experience from it. I don't know how you two feel about that, but like I don't have mixed feelings about it at all. I think it's a failure on our industry to not serve them
Right.
better. Yeah.
I agree. I mean, for Vlambeer, when I was working at Vlambeer back in the days, we even said as much. Like, I understand that as an indie, we have the freedom to do that. But we said, if you can't afford it, just find a download.
Yeah.
Enjoy. Because, like, to be fair, most of the games I played as a kid, like FIFA, I would go to, like, I don't know, like a Carrefour or some supermarket and see the games. And they'd be hundreds of Egyptian pounds, right? Just, you couldn't buy those with money. But then I would go to like a little zoo somewhere, and they would just have like all these these copies of popular music on like cassette tapes,
Yeah.
with like clearly printed, like just like
Yes.
from a really bad inkjet printer, like Linkin Park or something. That was my stuff. And then there would also be a rack with computer games, and they were also clearly printed. And then if you'd open them, it would literally just be a rewritable CD, right? With the words FIFA written on it, or like a poorly printed thing. And then on the back would be the CD key, and the CD key would always be 0000-000. And that CD key would always work.
That's a fortress of security right there.
The first time I bought a game in Europe with my own money with a CD key, I was shocked that just putting 000 wouldn't work.
Yep.
I was like, what do you mean it doesn't work?
It
That
reminds
has
me
always
of
worked.
the Samsonite briefcases my dad bought and never changed the password to, and they were always like 11111, and it always unlocked. Like, what's the point of having the lock?
Oh, did your parents also have like the suitcase with all the important papers?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, absolutely. It's like
Right.
ours was cream colored. I don't know,
I
like the
have one
ugliest
now.
cream color.
Okay.
I have one now.
Yeah.
Because in Japan, I had like in the case of an earthquake, I need to have something to get going. So like the minute
Right.
there's like it's an emergency, I'm gonna grab the most important stuff and leave.
Right.
So I had that emergency bag, and I still have
Right.
it till this day.
Amazing.
Yeah, but also like I remembered my dad was like, he was onto something.
Right. Yeah.
But like on the topic of like bootleg stuff, like a video game, like especially like back in the Mega Drive era, like we were talking about, like in early '90s, it would be like 50 to 60 euros. That's like 1/3 of someone's salary,
Right.
Yeah.
or like half. So like the idea of like us buying a game when it comes out. So like I think for the Mega Drive, I had the one game.
Yeah.
And then every other Mega Drive game I played, I was either renting or like trading with other kids.
Yeah.
Right.
The idea of like asking my dad to pay 1/3 his salary to get me a video game that and it's the Mega Drive, so I'd finish it in a week.
Yeah.
Right.
You gotta be honest here.
Yeah.
It's like if it wasn't Street Fighter or FIFA, like I couldn't
Yeah.
see a reason to buy a game and keep it because in a week I would finish it.
But
Yeah.
Yeah, so like the rental business made sense. So like when the PlayStation came out, it was like the second coming to all of us because finally we can buy games at an affordable price of like $3.
right,
Of $3 per game, and like a lot of the shops used to go like, "You buy three, we'll give you two free," and I was like, "That's a pretty good deal."
right,
But I'll give you $1.
right, right. To be fair, I don't think I've ever, to this day, I've not seen an unmodded console in Egypt.
Yeah.
Like I just
they
like,
sell them modded, right?
right.
Yeah.
You just buy them modded, even in like somewhat reputable stores, like you buy them modded. It's only like the really fancy like U.S. Western brand supermarkets or electronics store where they sell the actual console, but they come with like a technology like bonus price because importing it is complicated.
Yeah.
So I mean, all the games I played with my cousins because they would have an actual PlayStation. So jealous, so jealous. We would play on those, and it was all modded. Like none of it was legal because like you just can't afford that. That device is more expensive than like 2-3 months of living.
Yeah.
But I mean, the way I got to play games, modded consoles, a lot of emulation because that was also a big thing.
Yep.
And net cafes. I spent so much time in net cafes. I don't know if that was a thing, if that was a big thing for you guys, but I
Huge.
just
Yep.
there was one around the corner, and I would spend any moment I could there, and then I would disappear right for 9 months or 10 months because I wouldn't be in Egypt for the majority of the year, and then I'd come back and I spent just the guy was just like, "Oh, you're back." It's like, "Yep." Like, well, good for business, and I would just play like Soldat was super popular on that.
Yeah.
What else? All sorts of like weird little 2D LAN games
Yeah.
were on there. They didn't really care for strategy games.
Interesting.
Shooters.
Not shooters, lots of shooters,
Yeah.
right? There was racing game and there was FIFA. There was always FIFA.
Yes.
Yeah.
Except for a few years when it was Pro Evo,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right? There was the Pro Evo years. When
Play FIFA, smoke shisha, right?
and of course the arcades, but those were usually legit,
Yeah.
right? The arcades
yeah.
were actual arcade cabinets.
So I think that for me, like, and in Jordan, the LAN culture was kind of a continuation from the arcade culture because we had arcades growing up, and like a lot of the fighting games, like from Pac-Man to fighting games, like I don't know, somehow the arcade cabinets were always current, so like we were following the transition, and then like LAN happened when like consoles, consoles started to take over the arcade market. LAN started happening, and then like LAN was the thing. Like Counter-Strike was the game that kind of like made it explode.
Right.
And I have like like I continued to go to LANs even like after graduating and like started working. Like I have very fond memories of like me and my friends like we were making our first games. We like we all like every friend would like call their friends, and we tried to put together like a big enough group so that when we rock up in a LAN place, we could all of us play Battlefield. So like we'll have like enough players to have like 2 Battlefield teams that are all people we know.
Yeah.
And it was like wild times because you pay like $2 and you have 4 hours.
I'm sorry, it's a little dark, but like Iraq had to catch up a lot because of the Gulf Wars.
Of course.
Yeah, so for
Right.
the longest. Yeah, when I went to visit during the sanctions, the only thing resembling video games that I saw were Game Boys. Very, very few people had them.
Right.
I mean, when your concern is different, when your concern is electricity going to stay on, you're not going to be buying these devices that are going to connect to your TV to play video games. It was that was just not our experience at all. But the catch up happened. I mean, right now, game development scene in Iraq is picking up. There are game jams, and people are getting back into it. Yeah, so it's making a comeback. But like these net cafes and what have you, they were not a thing.
They weren't there.
No,
yeah.
there was
no,
nothing
I can
like
imagine.
that.
We had something in Jordan. I'm not sure if maybe it's rocking up in Iraq right now. Is that like there was the LAN shops kind of doing their thing on PC gaming. But then, like, these stores started rocking up in which, like, you go in and there's just a bunch of TV sets and couches, like maybe 15. There'd be like a TV set and a couch in front of it, and then you can sit there and play console games. And you also pay by the hour, and I think 95% is FIFA. or like
Right.
or like Pro Evo, like people playing soccer games, and there's usually like the one or two Street Fighter groups.
Yeah.
That's usually my group.
Yeah.
Right.
But
Yeah.
it was like such a big thing. Is after work, everybody goes up to one of those PlayStation stores, what people call them. It'll be like, "Yalla نروح la PlayStation. Let's go play some PlayStation." And then you go to this place, and 4 controllers, 2-on-2, playing FIFA, smoke shisha, and have alcohol-free cocktails.
Right.
It's like
Subhanallah.
the Friday night out Arab style.
Sounds like a good time.
I had a lot of fun.
I've seen some of those before, but they weren't a big deal when I was growing. They've been more recent, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But it is wild the ways people work around just not having a home console. I actually kind of like the social part of it.
Yeah, me too.
Like the net cafes were always some of the best time, just because you'd meet other kids, you talk to people, and make friends over these games that you were playing. I feel that's kind of been lost over the internet a little.
You know what I mean? In those stores that I was talking about. So there was this one store that me and my crew used to go to, and we were playing Street Fighter 4 at the time.
Mhm.
It just came out. So we're playing a whole bunch of Street Fighter 4, and we started to get good at it, right? So we started to play against the people that also come to the store to play Street Fighter 4. They'd be like, "Yo, you guys want to play?"
Now it's a rivalry.
And then we beat them and all of the stuff. So we became that shop's champs.
Right.
And then we started to go and visit other shops, and we go we got people here play Street Fighter, want to play against their
These
champs.
are some good Pokemon gyms.
Yeah, it's totally that. So eventually we identified the bigger PlayStation stores there, and we know who are the best Street Fighter players there.
Right.
And then we'd be like, here's our 2 best players against 2 of your other players.
Right.
And it'd be like a political event.
Right,
Where,
right.
the players are sitting on the couch, and everybody else is sitting around and go Ahlan wa sahlan, assalamu alaikum.
Yeah.
It's so good you guys here. Guys, tea, let's bring tea for our guests.
Right.
This is the sport delegation. So the guests free drinks while our champs are sitting there and either winning or losing.
Right.
And then winning or losing at this stage, if it's in our store, it'll be trash talking the entire time.
Right.
But since we're a delegation, we're also we have to abide by good sportsmanship. It'd be like, "Oh, your team lost. He played a really good match. Maybe next time, you guys will do great. Inshallah." And then I could drink some tea. That's amazing memories. So we ended up this is the Jordanian champion because he came out of those Pokemon gyms.
All they need to do is introduce badges. That's it.
Oh man,
They're done.
that's a great idea.
I would love that. That sounds amazing. But yeah, no, I don't. I will say until the Xbox the Xbox 360, I had never owned a console besides the PlayStation. But now looking back, that PlayStation was actually great. It was a lot of games for not too much money. And I have it. It's still blown up, so it's still burnt. But I have it here, and I've been thinking of modding in a new NES plate.
I still have my childhood NES. It stopped working, but I didn't have the heart to get rid of it.
Right.
So one of my friends actually took it. He asked me for it. He took it, he gutted it, and he made it into a joystick. Kotaku wrote an article about my joystick a long time ago. He actually carved holes on the top of it and put the joysticks and the buttons, and modded it so it works with PC, Xbox 360, and PS3 at that time.
Right.
But yeah, it's a great little gizmo. So maybe turn your PlayStation into a toaster or something. You can turn it into something else that you need.
I found the article, but reader Osama D's French friend built him a fighting stick out of a Nintendo Entertainment System. This is from 2009. I just love how much of, now that we're talking, I love how much of gaming was just people gathering around, being loud about it. It was a big deal. It was a together deal. That was nice.
So, speaking of social things and being loud, I just
here
wanted
we
to
go.
remind everyone that we always love to chat with all of you. So, if you want to join us on our Discord at discord.thehabibis.com or send us any of your questions on info@thehabibis.com. So yeah, if you've guessed it, this is the wrap up for the week. I think we've had some
It's
pretty
Osama quality, just like.
Summer quality.
How do you rate it? How do you rate
I
it?
mean, we can't rate the master. That's not how it works.
You're the benchmark, and we rate according to you.
We see if we can one day reach your level. But one more thing. If you don't like podcasting apps, we've created a new solution for you because a lot of people are asking for it. You can now also follow the Habibis on YouTube at youtube.thehabibis.com. It'll bring you straight to our channel. You can listen to all our latest episodes on YouTube as well. That took a lot of work. Please go listen and subscribe.
Yeah, Rami worked really hard on that. Thank you, Rami. So, and seriously, honestly, thank you all for listening. We really appreciate it. We really love doing this show, and you listening makes it possible. So, thank you for listening, and see you next week. Salam.
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 That was the Habibis podcast for this week. I'm Osama Dorias, your host for this episode. You can find me on Twitter at Osama Dorias. My fellow Habibis were Rami Ismail, you can find on Twitter at THA_Rami, and Fawzi Mesmar, who you can find on Twitter at Fawzi Mesmar. Send us your questions, stories, suggestions via info@thehabibis.com. Intro and outro music was provided by Malik Zubayla, and the logo was provided by Ibrahim Hamdi. The Habibis is a weekly podcast about 3 game developers drinking good Arab tea, with new episodes launching every Friday, inshallah. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcasting service or check out thehabibis.com for more information. Thank you for listening, and Assalamu alaikum.